Hey everybody, it's Matt Bissonette from the Squirts, and you're listening to my good friend Jake at Music Existence.
Welcome to another instance of music existence where because of music, we exist. I have with me Matt Bissonette, a bassist and vocalist, player on over 20 albums, played with everyone from Ringo Starr, Elton John, ELO, David Lee Roth. And he has a sound encompassing everything from jazz, metal, and rock. We're going to highlight one of those projects today called The Squirts, a band that sort of forged its path in the early to mid 2000s, and now it's coming back with the much anticipated third album, Squirts III. We're going to talk about all of that. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you,
Thank you so
sir.
much.
Thanks for having me on, Jake. I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
You started that musical foundation with your brother Greg. And how did that pan out? Did your musical bond like coincide with your bond as brothers?
Absolutely. Yeah, we grew up in Detroit, and my mom and dad were both musicians, and they got us going super early. By the time I was 13, I was already playing bass and working in bands. My dad got me in his band, and my brother and I just started playing in different bands. We had our own band called Grand Circus Park, where we play all cover tunes and stuff, and we would just play all different parties and high school dances and just anything, and then gigs on the weekend. And I've just been working since forever, and mostly because our parents got us going on it, and they were very cool enough to get us lessons and just give us experience. So Greg and I have been playing together pretty much from the womb. So we still play together all the time, and he's my best buddy, and we hang out, and it's just an amazing, blessed life to be able to play music with your own brother. It's
It
pretty great.
truly is. It's a gift, man, because that doesn't come around too often. Usually there's that hesitation, that kind of footwork to be needed, but it was straight up from the get-go. You guys got along really well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had our moments like brothers do, but we've always after if we ever go at it, we laugh about it and apologize and work it out and just it's pretty amazing to have an older brother that always encourages me to do more and to write more and to play more. We do a lot of albums together, and yeah, I just can't imagine without him. He's just a great brother and a great friend.
hmm And so your career kind of started in probably like the early 80s thereabouts. And like, so when that happened, as far as like your many nuances of sound, what did you really take to initially? Was it jazz? Was it metal? Or was it rock?
Well, I mean, growing up in Detroit in the late '60s, 70s, I left Detroit in '79 to go to North Texas State, which is it was a famous jazz school at the time. So, but when we grew up, it was kind of like you'd put on your AM radio station, and on the same station, you would hear the Carpenters and the Beatles, and then Weather Report and all these jazz bands. It was just like a conglomerate of sound,
Mishmash of
and
everything,
a
right?
smash of sounds. So you just absorbed all that, and we were fortunate to be around when that happened. So around my second year of college, I got called by Maynard Ferguson to go out and join his big band. So, and we were all big jazz heads back then. We all loved jazz and we wanted to play jazz. And playing with Maynard for 2 years was an amazing experience. I was 19 years old when I started, and it was an amazing experience. And then it just kind of turned into like rock stuff and pop stuff. We moved to LA and the pop scene there and everything, and doing sessions and learning to sing and doing vocals and stuff. It was just kind of one thing just kept leading to another. And that's how everything just kind of bangs into each other. It's blessed to have these opportunities to work with great people.
hmm And uh and it really was like great. I mean, I learned that you actually played with Jason Becker too. You did the album A Little Ain't Enough. I mean, Jason was a, truly a trooper, a fighter in a lot of ways.
Oh, he still is. He's an
Yeah,
amazing, amazing man. I remember he got the gig with Dave, and then we were rehearsing in Dave's basement. And Jason was a big Joe Montana, San Francisco 49ers guy. He'd always wear Joe Montana. And we would play football in Dave's backyard in between breaks, really athletic guy and just amazingly gifted, can do anything. And he was really young when he joined the band. And I remember one day he kind of felt a pinch on his leg, and he's like, "I got to get
yeah,
this checked out." And then it turned into all the stuff that he's gone through. But I still go up and visit him. I haven't seen him in a while, but he would have me come up there, and I'd play bass on his records, and he would tell me what to do. He had a first time I went up to see him, when he was laying there, he was just he would talk. Him and his dad figured out this way to communicate with his
mhm.
eyes. They had a graph written where he could look up A, B, C, and his dad Gary and his mom they learned this whole language. So it was just like I was talking to him, and I can imagine how frustrating it was for him to not be able to communicate like that. But he figured it out, and he still writes a lot of amazing music, orchestrated music, and stuff. And he's just an amazing person, and it was a blessing to play with him.
Yeah, I mean, reading his story. I mean, I'm disabled myself. I'm not. I don't have a disease, but I have cerebral palsy. It was really like informative to me to know that in spite of our challenges, we can actually use our adaptive equipment to our advantage.
That's exactly right, man. It's the same thing with, musicians every day. Sometimes you'll break your finger or something will happen, and you just have to adapt to that situation and make it work. With your situation, with Jason's, you just plow through. You got to find a way because you don't want to give up to it. And that's the positivity of life is just always keep chucking.
Yeah, and in that same sense, did you develop a lot of trust with the collaborators in your corner?
As far as the band, you mean, or the Squirts,
Yeah,
or
as far as any band that you've recorded, any of those like big bands that you've collaborated with in a lot of ways.
well, most of the bands that I'm out with, like
Yeah.
with Roth and with
Yeah.
Satriani and the people that I've worked with, you're pretty much playing their tunes and you're pretty much doing the job that the bass player does in that band. So there's not a lot of give and take. Out here with Kevin Cronin's band, it's great because he's always wanting to change arrangements and everybody puts in their 2 cents of stuff. But a band like the Squirts was something that we could, everybody it was like 33 and a third across the board, three guys, and we all write everything together. And I need that. I've tried to write things. I used to be a staff writer, and I try and do everything myself, and it always would sound the same. It was always, what I thought it would be. And it's kind of like Lennon and McCartney. They needed each other to bounce off each other and to push each other. Like with Rick Springfield and I, when we would be writing for his record, we'd constantly be going back and forth on things, and it always makes a better song. The easy way is to do it yourself, produce it yourself, and
Rick
it always sounds the
Springfield
same.
has an interesting trajectory too, because, a lot of people don't realize that I mean, he is Australian. He had an Australia-based career doing like very folk kind of rootsy pop. And then through General Hospital, he Americanized and became this very American
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I completely don't even think of him as Australian until he starts telling me about him.
Yeah, when he was a teen idol back then, he
Yeah,
really was. Even before he
yeah.
was famous, all the girls loved him in
Oh,
Australia.
he still is, man. Whenever we would play in his band, it was like this magnet. The girls were just like, so you could do anything. You could run to the bathroom and come back, and nobody would even know because they were so fixated on Rick. But he is a rock star, that's for sure.
Yeah, and like, how does that, how is that line blurred between rock star and down to earth, just Rick, the human being?
Well, I mean, I've known Rick for a long time through Brett Tuggle, who used to play with him, and Tim Pierce, and those guys that were playing with Rick in the old days in the '80s. And I'd met Rick at a few parties, and he just wants to be normal and have a normal conversation. When, Rick and I get together, we talk about, it gets heavy right away. We talk about heavy stuff and funny stuff. And I realize, there's certain people that are rock stars that you keep a distance from and you don't really get too close to the bubble. But Rick's not like that. He's kind of, he wants to be one of the guys on the tour bus and in the vans. He's just joking around. So it's pretty easy with Rick because he's just I wouldn't say he's a normal guy because his life is not normal the way his trajectory of his life is. But once you kind of get to know him and he trusts you, like most of the people that I work with, once they like you and trust you, they become really good friends. It's not like just work people. That's pretty important to do when you're working with other people, is just to be normal and get along with them.
Yeah, and that really is a blessing too, right? When you talk about, your formative times with your brother and then branching out into that creative space with a wider range of
Yeah.
musicians.
Yeah, yeah. The main thing I think with musicians, people always ask, people ask people, what do I got to do to make a living in the music business, and what do I do? And I don't think it's so much about you got to learn your instrument, you got to learn how to do everything, and you got to be really good, but you just got to be a good guy and be able to get along and play nice with others. Because out here on the road, I'm on the road right now, we're on tour, and 90% of it we're just traveling, just going from one place to another and hanging out. And then 10% of it, we're on stage playing the music. So you just got to get along with people. And that's where a lot of people trip up. They just kind of become egotistical and kind of go into their own world. And then they're unemployed and they go, what did I do?
Yeah, they get cozy and then they get cramped and then they're like out on the streets once again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But but it all kind of works out in the end once you kind of developed those collaborations and uh and in the same way, we talked about Rick. I mean, he had this whole arsenal of musicians that he collaborated with. It was kind of orchestrated by, Dave Grohl, buying that console and inviting a lot of musicians over. And in the same way, like when we mention squirts, when we get to squirts, it's like um you go kind of back to basics with the squirts because it was a project where you were just having fun. It was to blow off steam.
Yeah, exactly. You should be a producer, my friend. It's just about having fun with your friends. Sometimes Greg and I will play sessions and we just look at each other and go, I can't believe we're brothers and we're friends and we get to do these sessions and hang out and get paid to play music together. With the Squirts, it's like we pretty much were three guys that were in Rick's band and we would play every night with Rick. And then we asked Rick if we could open up for him with our band, the Squirts. And it was almost like a sound check because it was the same gear, same band. And then when Rick came on, it was already figured out. And Rick was really cool enough to let us do that. But it all started just starting to write one song and turning into another, and then it turned into an album, turned into two albums, and now three albums. And we waited a long time for the third one, but we think it's the best one, and we love it. And it's just being, even though it's mostly online, because I'll go to Roger's house because he lives in LA and I live in Orange County, but George moved to Nashville. So it's files and doing it that way, sending files. But we're FaceTiming all the time and we're talking and we're doing ideas and everybody's putting in their ideas. And it's just a great band. And that's what music is playing in a band with your friends. That's the best thing in the world.
So like when you started kind of back in 2003, I mean it was just for fun, but when it came to putting out records kind of in that climate, especially in an underground sense, where you kind of did you kind of make yourself aware of like how underground music was being distributed at the time, or you just stuck to like what you knew originally?
Well, we're called the Squirts for a reason, in our brains, we're
The
pretty
Little Rascals,
little
right?
rascals. We're not like we wouldn't know the difference between $1 and $10. So it was all for fun. And when we put out a CD, we were kind of shocked. Okay, so back then we were just starting to get our home studio, so we didn't have to spend a lot of money to go into studio. So we kind of kept our budgets low. We
Yeah, and
made
that's when the home studio project really kind of
about
took off.
when it started, so we could save thousands of
Yeah.
dollars with that. And then CD costs were coming down. The music
Yeah.
industry was starting to get funny and different, and it was a changing business, you know. So we just kind of were low streaming it, and we came in with our CDs, and people started buying them. We were kind of shocked. We'd come out and we were kind of double dipping, you know. We were playing with Rick, getting paid, and then we'd make our money with the Squirts, and then people would buy CDs and stuff and T-shirts and hats, and we kind of went, you know, we never really went into it thinking we're going to get rich from this or, you know, or whatever. But it is nice to work with bands and go on the road and have something that you're proud of that you do on the side that sometimes gets attention, and it's great. You know, if it's good music and people like it, that's all we want to do. You know, we want to write lyrics that are fun, that, you know, sometimes challenge people and make them think about what we're talking about. And, you know, that's a gift, you know, the gift to be able to write music. I mean, we don't take it lightly, you know.
Hmm. I mean, you've played with all sorts of people in the fields of jazz and, rock is certainly metal. And Squirts is a lot more kind of hard rock, kind of punk rock, kind of back to basics kind of thing. And I was wondering, like, when you like formed the Squirts and you were kind of arranging the material, what influences were you bouncing off of each other at the time?
Well, in the old days when we used to have bands, our own bands that we were really trying to get signed and trying to be successful, you know, in the early 90s, everything changes with music when Nirvana hit the scene and everything changed, you
Yeah, it
know.
was all alternative
Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
time.
and kind of, and it was great, great music, but it was kind of dark and it was a little bit like, and it
A
was
little
kind of,
avant-garde.
yeah, and some of it I really liked, and some of it I was like, eh. But we kind of would ride the waves and write a song like Nirvana, and then we would look at ourselves and go, "What are we doing?" You
It
know,
is like very Nirvana kind of influence, a lot of that early Squirt stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, you can't help but be influenced by everything around you. But I think this record, we kind of just didn't like that song "White Noise" on the record. It's just like, okay, the world's going on, and you can go like this. You don't have to listen to political fighting or whatever's going on. You just focus on what you want to do, and we just want to write simple songs, make them sound a little bit harder than they are because of cool guitar things and bass things and drum things, but really just, you know, it's like Rubber Souls, like four chords and a lyric and a melody, and dress it up around that. So we try and keep it simple, but we definitely like to rock. We love, you know, Foo Fighters and all those bands and Switchfoot, all these bands, and we love the heavy stuff. But this album, we didn't really think about anything. We just kind of would start with something completely bizarre and it turned into something. And none of the songs are really related to the next one. It wasn't like any stock thing, which is something that you can do now, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool.
And uh and the cool thing about the first two Squirts records is your son
Yeah,
was
yeah.
on the cover. Now, um like factoring in like the spontaneity of it all, like was that kind of an organic decision as the project unraveled?
Yeah, now I look back and I go, why did I put my son on the cover? You know, but and
But
now
he
he's,
just had that kind of charisma
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, he was an amazing little kid. We thought about for a second because he's 28 now and
Well,
he's a professional baseball player. He's got a full on beard, and we thought about, you know, putting him on the cover again, just kind of, you know, like an older fried out. But we said we better not do that, and he wouldn't do it anyway. But it is about. I mean, we did a video for a song called "The Way That I See You," where we had my son and two other kids play the song as a young version of us, and then it cuts to us playing. Then it cuts to my dad playing with a propeller hat like I used to wear with the Squirts, and two other older guys. And it was kind of about how life goes by fast and stuff. But I mean, the point I think for the Squirts for us is just you're supposed to have fun. You know, nothing's that serious in music. You're not gonna do anything that nobody else has done already.
coincidentally, it becomes poignant as as it unravels more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Once again, you should be a producer, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to produce my own material and stuff, but I like the storytelling aspect of our conversations. I love when we talk about family, when we talk about bonds, this is all part of music existence. And
Exactly.
it's that's why I like to do things a little different, make the interviews a little more intimate, not just talk about this song or that song, but the way the bonds around those songs were formed.
And that's what it is. It's a spiritual, music is a spiritual thing. Spiritual is a weird word to use now because it could mean millions of different things, but I definitely believe music is a gift that God gives us. Everything that I have, I owe to God that gave me hands that could actually do this and
Yeah, of
play, to sing, and all these things that we have. It's like such a gift that I never want to take that for granted and just
course.
get pompous about it or get egotistical. Are you kidding me? It's like what a disaster that would be to think that you did it yourself. So to be able to play music with your friends and know that God loves you and
Yeah,
that you have a life, I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, I think about that every day.
yeah, I do too, man. And so when it came to this record, especially after a long stint, a long span, um, what got you guys what got you guys back into the whole mix of things for Squirts 3?
Well, I don't know how it started. Uh, we were just kind of talking on the phone one day, and I think George sent me an idea of a song, and then I finished it out, and then we took some songs from years ago, and that song When We Die is the first song we recorded like 15, 20 years ago, and we found the old track, and it kind of inspired a whole song. It kind of just led up to this thing. There was no real plan about it, no business plan. It was just like let's get the old guys together and see what happens. So no plan. It just turned into one song after another, and then we just got halfway through and go, let's put out another record and see what happens. So we're not expecting the earth to shake and everything but we would love to have as many people hear this album as possible because we're real proud of it and thankful we could do it after all these years. And we're all
Yeah.
still here, which is a miracle too.
Yeah. And it's really cool. It's like very hard, very like it has a lot of like ebbs and flows of like, you know, the heavier stuff that it starts out with, and then like as you go forward, it's like smoother, like more electronic influences.
Yeah.
And what I love about this in backtracking through your history playing on, other people's records, it's like you keep an open mind to music. You
Yeah.
don't like you don't say, "Oh, that's, below my level."
Well, no, you can't do that, especially now. I mean, you know, uh, if you ever become an old guy like me and you think that all the music was better when the 60s or 70s or 80s, and then you just go on YouTube for a second and you see how great the
It's
music
alive, man. It's
is.
alive.
And musicians, they're playing better than ever. It's like athletes, they're playing better than ever because it's just they're learning and it keeps going. So I never want to get crusty. None of us want to get crusty. I'm not going to say that I listen to the radio and know every song because I don't, but I love the music that's going on. As long as it's positive and doesn't uh, burn down the bridge, I'm all for it. Just
hmm
not good music.
So I remember, so George had a production on the first record. Now is he resuming that too with this one now?
Well, he's a great mixer and a great engineer, and he really takes his time to make it right. He really dialed in the vocal sound for this record and working with new gear and stuff. So we trust him with everything. So, we kind of all produce it together, but in the end, he's the guy that does all the dirty work. And thank God he does. It saves us thousands and thousands of dollars too, and he's really good at it. And he's patient, and that's something I'm not, as much as to mix or anything like that. So, every band needs a George. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, and it's like um before, production was like such a luxury if you can work with this guy or that guy. But now, like, it's less of an aesthetic thing and it's more of a necessity nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, the music level quality is so high now. people don't want to listen to anything that's cheesy sounding or just not well put together, you know. So it's a different world, man.
Yeah, I know. Like, I remember talking to this guy Marcos Leal. He was saying like nowadays, like your demo needs to be it. Your demo needs to be the finished project. It can't be just the demo.
I know. Well, I just saw the Led Zeppelin movie, and that's what they did. They just recorded it and owned it themselves. This is it. This is who we are. Nobody else is going to record it better than we did it. So our demo is now our record. You know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it's so cool. Even now, surprisingly, you'll see how many demos actually become albums.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It's a different world now, so anything can happen.
Yeah. And so I was wondering, so as far as like with the Squirts 3 and like kind of getting the train rolling back again and like assembling the product and kind of listening back, did you feel um like we sound the same, but it's not like we're stuck in 2003? Like you feel like you've evolved in a
Definitely,
sense?
definitely. I think we all have had, 20 years goes by and music keeps rolling. So you're influenced by everything that's happened in those 20 years. And we all listen to our own kind of music that we listen to. And for me, listening to different singers and melodies and stuff, it always inspires, where you look back. But I still look back at those old Squirt records and I go, those are pretty cool songs, and they still sound great from, recording them ourselves.
So, considering your career thus far, what have you learned about yourself, not only as a musician, but as a person?
I think my main takeaway from for that question is that not to take myself too seriously, to see the blessing, to see what I have and what I've been given and the opportunities to meet a lot of really great people, talented people, and to know that they're really nice people and they're respectful to everybody, and just to kind of not take it too seriously, but to be grateful. I mean, it's just uh, it's like my son playing baseball. We talk about it all the time. He's 28 and he's still getting to play baseball, getting paid to play baseball. That's not a normal life, So don't ever think that that just happens. It's given to you. You didn't really go and earn it. It was given to you, and that's some serious grace. So I think I've just learned to be more grateful and appreciative, and not let anything go by unnoticed. Try and see everything in front of me, as opposed to the younger guy who kind of was thinking that I was cool and earning it on my own. It doesn't work that way.
Hmm. Oh man. But uh but it's cool that you're grateful. And lastly, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
To our millions of Squirts followers, we have to apologize for the name of Squirts. I mean, somebody posted. He goes, "I can't get past the name," and I was like, "Okay, I know." But it is the Squirts. It is about a bunch of kids running around and being young at heart. So I'm not responsible for any of that other stuff that comes up on the interweb. But thanks for listening to our CD, and we hope you like it, and we hope that it makes your day better somehow. And thank you for listening to it. And thanks,
Hmm.
Jake, for having me on your show. This is cool, man. You're a cool guy.
You're a good guy too, man. I'm great to have you in my corner.
All right, I'm in your corner. I'll see you soon, man.
See you, man.
Bye bye.